right, hey. Okay, so yesterday, I got most of the way through this chapter, chapter 5, The Phantom Brakeman, and the video just like stopped recording at a certain point, and then it took a really long time to upload because it was really long. It was almost 40 minutes long. And I got really frustrated, so I didn't record the rest yesterday. I took deep breaths instead. And I think what needs to happen is these chapters are just longer than the Echo chapters, and I think I need to record the remaining chapters in 2 parts each, because they seem to be at least 40 minutes long each. And if you get anywhere past like 20 minutes recording on YouTube, it starts to take just ridiculously long time to upload. So that's how we're gonna do it. So I'm gonna probably reread a little bit of because I can't remember exactly where it's just cut off on me yesterday. So I'll be rereading just a little bit, and this will be a very short read aloud today, so sorry. All right, so where we left off, Ms. Eubanks has, well, first of all, Junior Stubbs' parents, Merle and Mrs. Stubbs, I don't remember her first name, are at the house, at Grandma's house, telling Grandma that they don't want Junior, their son Junior, to marry Vandalia Eubanks because they're trashy. And Grandma doesn't know what it has to do with her. But Mary Alice is hiding Vandalia Eubanks up in her bedroom, and Ms. Eubanks, her mother, has come, and where we left off, Ms. Eubanks has climbed a ladder up to the window at Grandma's house and is about to try to climb into the window. She has one knee on the windowsill. That's as far as she got. Grandma strolled over and took the ladder in both hands. She jerked it free of the ground, and it fell, scraping down the house. It must have seemed to Ms. Eubanks that the world had dropped out from under her. She had one knee on the windowsill, and the rest of her was in space. She grabbed the window screen, and it came with her as she fell. She was in the air a long moment, turning as she dropped, legs working hard. Then she crashed through the snowball bushes, still clutching the screen. "Jumpin' Jehoshaphat!" Mr. Stubbs cried. "And she's not insured!" The top of a nodding snowball had snagged her sunbonnet. We hear a lot about Grandma's snowball bushes. I imagine they're just sort of bushes with big puffy white flowers on them. Maybe a little bit like you see those? Might look kind of like those. Those are hydrangeas. But they feature quite frequently in these stories, don't they? All right, the top of a nodding snowball had snagged her sunbonnet, but Ms. Eubanks herself was down among the roots, beginning to crawl out from under the bushes that had broken her fall. Again, she was wheezing. Forgetting their differences, Mr. Stubbs would have gone to her aid, but Mrs. Stubbs took him in hand and headed to their ford. Over her shoulder, Mrs. Stubbs called back, "I hope this puts an end to the entire unfortunate business, and I don't want any more interference from you, Mrs. Dowdell." "Get in the car, Lula." Oh, Lula, that's her name, Mr. Stubbs said, and they gunned away as fast as a Ford goes. Ms. Eubanks sat in the yard, dazed. Grandma stood above her. "There's my property line," she said, pointing it out. "Get over it." Ms. Eubanks limped away, steaming. Where she'd parked her mule, I didn't know, if it was still alive. She turned around just off Grandma's territory. "You done abdicated my girl," she howled, "but I'll get her back. You watch." I looked up at the bedroom window with the missing screen. A face appeared there briefly, ghostly pale, and it wasn't Skipper the puppy. By 8 o'clock that night, the whole town knew everything. Defying his parents, Lula and Merle, Junior Stubbs was known to be in Grandma's cob house, waiting to make his move. And Vandalia Eubanks, tucked away upstairs in Grandma's house, was ready to make hers, in spite of her half-cracked mother, Idella. The Wabash Cannonball train was due through on its run between Detroit and St. Louis. It was going to make its usual quick stop at 8:17, and the runaway couple were going to elope on it. Everyone said so. Elope means run away to get married. If you have people who don't agree with you getting married to someone and you run away and get married to them on your own without your family, that's eloping. The Coffee Pot Cafe was doing its best business in several years because its front windows looked out on the train depot. Word had spread, and people had driven in from all over the county to witness the showdown. The Stubbses meant to be on the platform to talk Junior out of it. The whole Eubanks clan was coming to town to get Vandalia back. Nobody agreed on how many big brothers she had, but there were several. Things didn't go according to plan, though. When the Wabash Cannonball steamed in on schedule, the town bulged with people. But the Lovebirds, Junior and Vandalia, were absent. The Cannonball pulled out without them, leaving Merle and Lula Stubbs and all the Eubankses milling on the platform. The train gathered speed past Grandma's house, and Grandma was at the front door to see it go through. Mary Alice watched from an upstairs bedroom window. But then, with a piercing shriek that rent the evening air, the powerful locomotive set its brakes. It skidded a quarter of a mile before it could come to a stop. There was a little haze that night, a little mist. Down by the haunted timber, a deathly figure stood, shrouded in black, swinging an old-time lantern. The phantom brakeman seemed to hover between the tracks, dimly bathed in yellow lantern light. The engineer stuck his head out of the locomotive, that means train, and stared down the track with widening eyes. Before he could send the fireman to investigate, the ghastly figure had vanished in the haze, melted in the mist. But it gave Junior and Vandalia their chance. They came up, hand in hand from the other side of the Wabash tracks, and scrambled aboard the open platform at the back of the parlor car. When the Cannonball pulled out again, they were on it, together at last. That was one night Grandma didn't have to wake herself up to go to bed. As I came in the front room, she was there in her platform rocker, saying to Mary Alice, "Next time you bring a stray home, make it a puppy." Mary Alice stared. "You can call it Skipper," Grandma suggested. "How'd you know?" "I heard you tell your brother that Vandalia Eubanks was a puppy. I can hear all over the house. I got ears on me like an Indian scout. And I don't sleep." Grandma looked up at me. "Get everything squared away?" she asked. And yes, I had. I'd taken off Grandpa Dowdell's big old black overcoat, put it back in the cob house with the old lantern where I'd found them. By the way, my Grandma Dowdell voice comes from my own Grandma Dorothy, who is a farming wife in Wisconsin.